WLRN Video presents.
Check out this 6th installment of Getting Organized, an activist primer with Elizabeth Miller, a podcast segment for WLRN that will give you ideas and tools to do your own feminist activism. These interviews are meant to inspire and instruct feminists in how to organize their own activist projects. In February 2023, Elizabeth interviewed Ann Menasche and discussed Ann's lawsuit against her former employer, Disability Rights California, for wrongfully firing her for stating facts about biology. Enjoy the interview, sisters.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Miller reporting for Women's Liberation Radio News, WLRN. Today, I have with me in the studios Ann Menasche, who is an attorney in California, who was recently fired for expressing the opinion that abortion is a right that women have based on our biological sex. Ann has recently filed suit in January of 2023 in San Diego Superior Court against her former employer, Disability Rights California, which is the largest legal nonprofit in the state. And she asserted claims of sex and sexual orientation discrimination, harassment, and retaliation related to her termination after almost 20 years of employment. Ms. Menasche is a lesbian who was a leader in the local marriage equality movement a decade ago. She's also a feminist with deep roots in the abortion rights struggle, both pre and post Roe v. Wade. She's been at the center of peace and justice activism in San Diego for decades. She is a longtime champion of the rights of all disenfranchised people. The complaint alleges that her termination came without warning, despite her strong work record advocating for her clients with disabilities, her groundbreaking homeless advocacy, and her superiors giving her high marks in cultural competence. The complaint further alleges that DRC's drastic action in firing Ms. Menasche followed an email exchange on May 5th, 2022, in response to the leak of the Dobbs draft opinion that called for the reversal of Roe v. Wade and allowed states to ban abortion. DRC issued a statement opposing the likely reversal of Roe, and the executive director of DRC stated on the all-staff email list that he welcomed staff comment. Ms. Menasche responded on the list, thanking DRC for coming up with a statement in defense of Roe v. Wade, and stated that access to safe legal abortion is a life and death necessity for women as a biological sex across the board. Though the language of her email did not criticize or even mention transgender individuals in any way, she was immediately attacked by her employer as an anti-trans hate monger and labeled a TERF, which is a misogynistic and anti-lesbian slur. Ms. Menasche clarified that she was talking about sex, not gender, and requested that the email discussion on the list be ended. The next day, May 9th, DRC's Civil Rights Practice Group, of which Ms. Menasche was a member, met outside her presence without telling her they were meeting and issued a letter calling her email communications a threat to civil rights. Ms. Menasche then complained to her employer that she was being targeted for harassment because of her sex and her sexual orientation. She wrote in part, "If sex is no longer recognized as a protected class or deemed to have no existence, not only are half the human race born female unable to name or fight sex discrimination, but lesbian and gay rights or the rights of same-sex attracted people are made invisible and effectively eliminated as well and redefined as transphobic bigotry." Her employer's response to this email was to fire her 2 days later. When asked, the only reason they would give for firing her was so-called ongoing performance issues. And I'm happy to have Ann Menasche here today to talk to us about her career, her firing, and what she's doing about it. So thanks for being here, Ann, and I'm happy to have you here with me today. I'm absolutely flabbergasted by your employer's actions.
Yeah.
And I'm very glad that you have filed suit against them because they obviously broke the law in many different ways. So tell us about yourself. Tell us about how you got into this area of law and your background, and your
Sure.
professional life
Yeah.
leading up to
Yeah.
these.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been a lawyer since 1977 in California, a really long time. I've done most of my work has been around civil rights, representing disadvantaged people, people of color, people with disabilities, throughout my career, and poor people. I was in private practice in San Francisco. I then did public benefits work at Legal Aid Society of San Diego for 4 years. And then in 2002, I moved to Disability Rights California, which was called Protection and Advocacy at that time, and they changed their name. And they are a federally funded nonprofit, as you said, the largest legal nonprofit in the state, as far as I'm aware. So that experience was great on the whole. I loved my work. I still love this area of work. I did some impact litigation. I represented people at hearings. I negotiated settlements. I did the whole range of legal work. I also was a grassroots organizer for disability rights. We had meetings with the mayor. We had protests against budget cuts. And we worked around issues of housing and homelessness. Um, and I'm still doing that on the issues of homelessness right now, and a major piece of class action litigation. So this came as a shock. No place is perfect, but I was absolutely shocked. There was
Let
a
me ask you,
projection. Yeah.
was transgenderism something that you had discussed at work before this happened?
Yeah. So I was going to a little background. So actually in 2016, I was doing Facebook, and somehow I had befriended everybody on the planet. At that time, for a while, I was supporting Bernie Sanders. Then I supported Jill Stein for president. Anyway, I was on all these Facebook pages, communications with a whole bunch of people I didn't know. And somehow the issue of sex oppression and gender identity came up. And I said something like, women are oppressed as a sex and we should all unite. Something really, really mild. And I got called a fascist and a bigot. And they actually went to my employer at that time in 2016. I think they posted some stuff on their website, or somehow
I'm sorry, who's the they? Who did this?
These people this group of people who piled on me on Facebook, who I didn't know personally.
Oh, okay. So just
these three people, three people went to my employer to complain about me and that I shouldn't be working there because I was a bigot and a fascist. At that time, this was 2016, 2017, maybe 2017, beginning of 2017, after the election. My employer was like, that's fine. I don't see, you're fine. Don't worry. Nothing wrong with what you said. I don't see anything wrong with what you said. You don't have to worry. They told me about it and I was like blown away. And, but I didn't have to worry. There's nothing wrong with what you said. That was what I was told. But things started changing on this issue slowly. There had been always had been diversity trainings of one kind or another, but the nature of those trainings started to change with a big emphasis on promoting an extremist version of transgender politics. It built up to that. It was a slow progression, but a few years ago, maybe right before COVID, right before, I guess it was 2019, probably, I had one of these diversity trainings, and lesbianism was based on same-sex attraction, not same-gender attraction, and I got called a transphobic by a coworker.
Because you said that lesbianism was based on same-sex attraction.
Yeah, right. So, I was concerned about this. And so I contacted my HR director, who was a gay man, and who's open about being gay. So, but in any case, he's a gay man, and he was very sympathetic. I said, I just want reassurance. Am I still protected as a lesbian, as a female in DRC? Are you still seeing these categories as protected or not? And we had an interesting dialogue about a lot of things, but that was really the gist of my concern that I expressed to him. I didn't want to complain about any individual. I just wanted to be sure I was going to be safe. And he said, oh, don't worry, Ann, you're protected. So he says, you're protected. I understand your feelings. You're protected. So, but there were things happening underneath the surface. I was starting to feel kind of iced out socially in some fashion. There was this undercurrent. There was a survey of some suggestions that people had on staff about what kind of person should be on the staff council they created. And it said, somebody wrote, no TERFs. And so there was this undercurrent. And I had I was supervising an attorney, a young attorney who I'd mentored for years. And she announced, actually not to me, but I found indirectly that she had asked that I be removed as her supervisor. And a month earlier, without giving me a reason or talking to me about it, and a month earlier, she said that she was being socially iced out because of my position on gender identity. She was being iced out for her close relationship with me. So anyway, so she had this long conversation with me like a month before she had me removed as her supervisor about how she was being excluded from some kind of LGBT kind of social circle because of her close relationship with me. And we had been, I thought, friends. I had been her supervisor as a law student. So it was very suspicious when I was removed.
I'm sorry,
then
you were removed from
as her supervisor,
being her mentor or her supervisor. Okay.
her supervisor.
But did they say anything to you at that time about why you were being removed as her supervisor?
I had to push for a reason, and then finally she refused to talk to me. I said, let's have a mediation, through HR. She refused to mediate with me. It was very bizarre. And then she gave some reason that didn't make any sense. It didn't seem like it was a fair thing, but it was her refusal to talk to me about it. And after that almost an hour-long conversation that she initiated a month earlier, I started thinking, some people don't like me because of my views on sex oppression and gender.
And during this time, had you ever said anything negative about people who identify as being transgender, or was it just the remarks you reported to me that women are oppressed on the basis of their sex and lesbians are same-sex attracted women?
Right. And I asked questions. I did ask questions like, what do you mean by gender? Can you define these things? But yeah, no, I never did. I never did.
Yeah,
I was careful. Yeah, I wouldn't have done that anyway. But I was careful too. I don't attack people. That's not what I do. So I never attacked anybody. The issue of so-called misgendering never came up because the people that were identified as transgender, weren't in my close circle of working relationships. So I wouldn't have no reason to refer to them in the third person. I've been working remotely for 2 years. None of this came up. It just wasn't an issue. But there was this undercurrent, and I definitely felt like there was something going on, and there was, evidence of that. But then we had another training. And at this point we were working remotely. Almost the entire staff was working remotely. Another diversity training, which was incredibly intensively ideological. We were being told that the idea of two sexes, sexual dimorphism, is a invention of white colonialism.
Your employer told you that as if it were a fact.
Well, the trainer. I mean,
they had an outside trainer?
Yeah, they had an outside trainer that they were sponsoring. This was a work training. telling
they
us
told
that.
you that this was a fact, that there's no such thing.
Right, and that sex is a spectrum, and this is a fact. And then there had been policies that were becoming more and more, well, extreme, like you couldn't use he or she in letters. I mean, things like, yeah, I
What were
thought
you
that was
supposed to use? What were you supposed to use?
they, or I don't know, some other term, some way of avoiding he or she. That was
I'm
now
sorry,
a
was
bad.
that if the person you were referring to had said that they
Regardless,
wanted to be called they, or it was just
regardless,
you need to call
regardless,
everyone they?
that you cannot use he or she, like he, if you're talking about like a class action, and you can say class members, he or she, because you got 200 class members or something. That
And you
would
were
be
not allowed to refer to
you're not
anyone.
able to do that, right? Exactly, anybody. Yeah, so it was getting really extremely ideological, and I did ask questions, and there were times that I said, there are disagreements within the LGBT community on these issues, and you should be aware of that, and we should respect all opinions. But I never attacked anybody. So that was the extent that came up. Then my employer made a public statement condemning the potential overturning of Roe v. Wade when that leak had come out, the Dobbs leak.
So this was when you were waiting for the opinion to come down, when there'd been the leak, but the opinion hadn't come out
When there
yet.
was a leak, right? And so they
your
made
employer
a statement. Yeah.
said something about supporting Roe v. Wade, and how did the employer word it? Did they say anything about women's right to reproductive freedom, or what did they say?
Everybody but every group but this is equal access to health care. It's a fundamental human right, and all people should have the right to make informed decisions about their own bodies. This retrograde decision also negatively and disproportionately harms people who already face structural barriers to care, including people with disabilities, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, LGBTQIA plus individuals, immigrants, people living in poverty, young people, and those without the means to travel. Not a word about females.
So that what you just read was a statement that your employer put out while waiting for the Dobbs decision to come down. And that statement never once mentioned women in a statement about abortion rights.
Exactly. So I actually did two things. One is I did write a private email to the executive director saying that thanks for this, but really you should include women because it's females as a sex that are being impacted. And he said, thank you for your opinion, or something really short like that. So I thought, well, people are discussing this online. He welcomed feedback. So I just did it. I responded on the all staff list in a very polite way. You want me to read
us? Yeah, read us what you emailed them.
Yeah, so, okay. This is what I said. So glad DRC, that's Disability Rights California, came up with a statement in defense of Roe. Thank you. Access to safe legal abortion is a life and death necessity for women as a biological sex across the board, regardless of race, economic class, gender identity, sexual orientation, parentheses, even lesbians can be raped, or anything else, and an absolute prerequisite for equal female participation in our society. Of course, the most vulnerable females, especially poor women, women of color, women with disabilities, young girls, unhoused women and girls in prisons, etc., will suffer the most under draconian anti-abortion laws. Wealthy white women have often managed to get abortions even before Roe. As a veteran of the feminist struggle for abortion rights that preceded Roe, I never thought it would come to this. Yet it is good to remember that women won this right primarily through grassroots organizing and peaceful mass protest in the streets, and that is the way we are going to protect it. Thanks again, DRC, for taking a stand. That was it.
So that was the text of your email to the executive director.
No, this was to the all staff list.
Oh, to the all staff list. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah. So
what date was that?
Huh? That was,
What date
that
was
was, it was May, was it May 11th? Let's see, May, um, I think so. I have to look at
I thought you
my.
said it was 2 days before you were fired,
Right, so, okay, let me see if
or
I
a
can remember
a few days
Yeah,
before.
yeah. I can give you the exact dates, but, yeah, I think I was fired on May 11th. So, it was before that. So it was, I think it was 7th, so it was like Friday.
Mhm.
And then, the meeting of my civil rights team was that Monday, the next workday. And then I was fired the following Wednesday, so I think that was the 11th. So,
Okay, so tell me about this meeting of the civil rights team. So you
yeah,
sent
so
this
let me know, let me
email.
explain what happened with this email. So in response to this email, I was viciously attacked by a coworker, who called me a turf, and, a hater and a bigot. And that,
Was that via email or was that verbally?
it was via email. I mean, all of this is email, all
So
of it.
that was that also sent to that listserv at your office?
Yes, the entire staff listserv.
Okay.
This person also, referenced my work in Feminists in Struggle. That person had apparently been investigating me, who I even didn't know that person at all, but was investigating me and waiting to strike, because they couldn't have quoted, me without, that quickly. They wouldn't have been able to find my video and say I said these things. And so it was an attack on my outside political activity, which is protected under California law. And that
And
this
what
person,
were they complaining about in your outside
and it
activity?
was all proof of that. This was, basically a dog whistle, that my use of words like sex and sex, the rights of women as a sex, were dog whistles for hate and
So
bigotry.
they were claiming that when you said that women are oppressed on the basis of our sex, you didn't actually mean that women are oppressed on the basis of our sex, but instead you meant some hidden horrible thing about some other group of people.
Well, essentially, it was equated with that. I doubt if this person agrees that women are oppressed based on our sex, because, uh, the views are pretty fanatical, and certainly not feminist. But anyway, so I was viciously attacked by that person. I was also admonished by someone in authority, who said that I was denying, that, all kinds of genders, all genders can get pregnant, and you're denying that, and the listserv is not a place to deny that.
Let me ask you a question about that. So did you ever say on the listserv that it is impossible for people who identify as some gender different from their sex to get pregnant? Did you say
No, of course not. In fact, my list included gender identity. So regardless of gender identity. So I said, so I clarified myself. I said, I'm talking about sex, not gender. What they have in common is being biologically female. That's why the people who can get pregnant.
Mhm.
And that's what I said. So that was a discussion. Then I said that, we should not do this anymore. And, I felt that this was or defamation, I said.
Sorry,
And
can you repeat that because you just froze for a minute?
yeah, so I said this was defamation. It needs to stop, and anybody who wants to politely discuss it with me, I'd be glad to discuss it off list on our own time, but we should stop.
You asked for the discussion on the list to stop.
Right, exactly. So, then the following workday, which is a Monday, that was Friday, and it was a Monday, that when my civil rights team met behind my back and came up with a statement condemning what I had said and saying that my position was inconsistent with the values of the civil rights team.
And what was
That
the
what
civil
I had said.
rights?
The civil rights team was, the, people in our agency, lawyers, advocates, and support staff, who were working on civil rights cases.
And you were part of that team?
Yes, I was part of that team.
And did that team usually meet with the whole team, or did they sometimes meet and exclude individual members of the team?
Never happened before. We had twice monthly meetings, and I was part of the team, and those were always in the afternoon. They met in the morning, without me even knowing about it, and came up with the statement.
So this team had never met without everyone being there before.
Not as far as I know. I mean, I don't know.
Unless they had other meetings behind your back.
Yeah, right. Exactly. I think some people did, but I'm not sure if it was part of the team. In any case, they had this private meeting. Members of management were certainly there. The statement, I have every reason to believe, had the support of management.
And what was the statement?
And the statement was that I was that they were concerned about the opinions that were expressed on the listserv, and they were referring to my opinions. It was very clear. They didn't use my name, but it was very clear they were referring to my opinions, and that they support their transgender colleagues, and that these opinions are inconsistent with the values of the team, implicitly of the organization.
Did they say what opinions were inconsistent with the values of the team?
Well, they were referring to the discussion that took place that past Friday, and the opinion is what I just read. That was the opinion. And the opinion that females get pregnant, that as a sex, females get pregnant, that opinion. I don't think that's an opinion. Actually, I think that's a fact.
No, it's not an opinion. But they said that was an opinion that was inconsistent with the values of the team.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it was a very, major condemnation. It's the worst thing that in my agency you could say about anybody, certainly as a civil rights litigator, and to say something like that is, you could say someone's a bad attorney, and that would be mild in comparison to saying your values are, you don't support human rights, you're a bigot.
Yeah, when you're working for human rights.
Yeah, so they were basically agreeing with the accusations that were made by that coworker.
Okay.
So then when that happened,
this came out on the Monday,
right?
And what did you do?
So what I did was, I said, this is sexist. I said that, you read, I think, part of the statement. But I don't have.
I'm sorry. Was the statement made via email, via verbally, and
all email? And
who did
I said that this was discriminatory. I said it was homophobic. It was harassment, and I explained why sex is an important category, and sexual orientation need to be maintained as protected classes. But I did say that I felt I was being harassed and discriminated against.
And who did you send this email to?
I sent it back to the team.
Okay.
Yeah.
From where the email came from.
Right. Yeah, I responded to the team. And as I said, management I'm sure knew all about this, and they were there. They're parts of the team, or they supervised the team. So, so this was basically what the management was basically agreeing with the accusations against me, essentially. Mm-hmm. So 2 days later, so what happened was the next day, which is Tuesday, the next day, my supervisor wanted to meet with me, and the following day, and I said, I have a dentist appointment on Wednesday morning, and then I had some meetings with opposing counsel in my case scheduled. I had some important meetings, and I would be really numb when I came out of the office, and then I'd have to go into this meeting pretty soon, and can we put it off to another day? So it was left up in the air. So that we never firmed up a time. Wednesday, while I'm in the dentist's office in the chair, and everyone knew because it was on my calendar and because I had said it, my cell phone rang twice, and then I got a text that said, "You're fired."
Wow! And who was that text from?
It was from the director of the legal advocacy unit, because the legal arm of Disability Rights California. There's a lobbying arm. There's different departments, but this are the people that do the legal advocacy work, and he's the director.
And did it say why you were fired?
Ongoing performance issues.
So it said, "Dear Ann, this is so and so. You are fired for ongoing."
Yeah. Yeah, basically, that's it. You're fired. You're terminated as of like Friday. But my computer was immediately shut down. I had to call my co-counsel and the city attorney and postpone the dates I already had. I couldn't access anything. There was no ongoing performance issues. I had really good reviews. There was some disagreement with my new supervisor who was preparing my evaluation and who had no direct experience with my work, who was taking some negative things that was said by one person or one or two people and as good coin. And I was trying to counter that with statements by my colleagues, my private co-counsel. But that was never finalized. There was nothing said about my cultural competence. Everything that I ever said about my cultural competence was always excellent. I had been recommended for
your what competence?
Cultural competence. They call that cultural competence. That's where you're sensitive to the rights and needs of oppressed people, various oppressed people. That you're someone who respects other ethnicities, other races, other religions, other.
Was that a metric on which people who work there were measured in terms of their performance? Okay.
Yeah, yes, it was on the evaluation form. So I was actually recommended for promotion like a year earlier. I didn't get it, but I was recommended by my immediate supervisor, who said I was highly cultural competent. He was very impressed with how I was concerned about various oppressed people and had a approach to injustice that he thought was really outstanding. So anyway, so there was no and our agency, if someone has a performance issue, they're supposed to have a progressive system where they work with you and work on improvement. None of that happened. It wasn't even finalized. This review was not even finalized. And when my employer tried to stop my unemployment, deny my unemployment, accused me not of having a performance issue, but of actual misconduct, of harassing my transgender identified coworkers, which was completely.
I'm sorry. So let's back up for a second. So later, after they fired you, you applied for unemployment.
Right.
Benefits, and your employer tried to block your ability to get unemployment benefits?
That's right. And the basis was, there would be no basis if you're a performance issue and you get fired for that. That's not a basis for denying unemployment, but misconduct is. And they accused
me. They changed their tune.
Yeah, and they accused me.
In the text, they said they were firing you for performance issues, but later when you tried to file for unemployment, they changed it to
misconduct.
Yeah. And they said the misconduct was what?
Basically misgendering or harassing in some fashion. No.
Had you ever had occasion to need to use wrong sex pronouns about somebody? Like,
no, I never.
Were there transgender identifying people that you worked with that you had to refer to in the third person?
There wasn't anyone I worked closely with. And this person who came after me, I didn't even know.
Oh, okay. So had you ever
no reason?
Sorry, had you ever worked with anyone in your office that
closely? No.
Identified as transgender?
Not closely. I mean, there were people, but not closely.
So the idea that you were harassing transgender identifying people had nothing to do with reality? No, absolutely. Completely fabricated. They didn't show up. I showed the hearing officer at the unemployment hearing all the emails, and he found there was no misconduct. So you got, so the hearing officer rejected your employer's claims and you got your unemployment. Right. Okay. Right. So after you were fired, what happened? Did anything happen immediately afterwards that was important that you want to talk about, or do you want to talk about? Yeah, there was some things we were starting to find out was after I left, that there was a woman who was a African American. I'm sorry, let me just interrupt you for a second. So how did you later find these things out? Because this woman came forward, who was African American, who was fired shortly after I was.
And she contacted me, even though I didn't know her either. She didn't need to do that, but she contacted me. And she also talked to my attorney.
Okay.
And so I have, my understanding is that there was a meeting from her, is that there was a meeting after I was fired of the entire staff
Mhm.
supporting, trying to, explain why Ann was fired and justifying it.
Mhm.
And basically it was a pile on. um, and then she went to the executive director or her supervisor, I'm not sure which. I think to the executive director, but said, I don't think it was fair for Ann to be fired. I don't understand why she was fired. I don't understand what she did wrong. You need to explain it to me because I might make a mistake. And, so she ended up, she was concerned, I guess, because of her religious beliefs about using wrong sex pronouns or requested preferred pronouns. I am not sure. I don't know the detail. My lawyer did an interview, complete interview. I'm going to meet her for lunch, but that hasn't happened yet. So I don't have the whole story, but essentially it appears she was fired because of her religion.
Interesting.
It's also illegal. And one thing I said during the email exchange was that I would never, ever want to fire someone based on their beliefs. I would never do, whether I disagree, no matter how strongly I disagree with them. I have worked with Mormons while I was fighting for marriage equality. They were working against marriage equality, and we have meetings over lunch and talk about it and debate it. But I would never consider trying to get that person fired, ever.
Mormons who worked within your organization.
Yeah, I had a law clerk who was a Mormon. I had another Mormon work with me as a law clerk in San Francisco when I had my own practice. Yeah, I would never discriminate against someone based on their beliefs. I may disagree with them really strongly, but I would never think that they should be fired because of their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that employers should have that kind of power over employees to control their thoughts,
their free thought and speech.
Basically thoughts. And they were pretty clear in condemning me. My team was very clear about condemning me for my opinion. It was my opinion, they said. They used the word opinion. Mm-hmm. My opinion.
Your opinion that women need abortion based on sex.
And the other thing that's really interesting is that the woman who came forward said that when she tried to get an explanation about what I did wrong so she could understand it, she was told, well, you're not going to understand this exactly because she's a lesbian. Ann's a lesbian. And essentially, I don't have the exact wording, but it's worse coming from her. Yeah.
What is worse coming from you?
The opinion.
My opinion
that there's such a thing as sex. Yeah, and that women
get the opinion that there's such a thing as sex is worse if a lesbian says it. Right. Any more information about that?
Yeah, as I said, I don't have the exact wording, but that was kind of the gist. And my lawyer did a more of a complete interview. I just had I had some communication with her, but I didn't have to get the whole story. I'm getting it in bits and pieces.
Yeah.
And eventually we'll meet in person. I have never met her. Mm-hmm. But she called me and said, she had gone to bat for me.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad she did, and I'm glad she reached out to you. And
I know.
She was also fired for her views.
Yeah, and so she has a case pending too. So yeah, they really are. It's shocking that a civil rights organization would treat people like that and deny their rights like that. Basically,
it is shocking. It's
mind-boggling.
I mean, yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling. All right, so tell us why you decided to sue and what you sued for.
Decided to sue because one, this was incredibly painful and hard for me. Even though I fashion myself as being resilient and fearless. And it was incredibly traumatic to lose a job after 20 years. I was there for 20 years. Basically that day, just fired by text. That was absolutely shocking. I was so stressed out by it that I entered therapy, which I hadn't really done ever. I mean, maybe when I was in my 20s, like for 2 months or something, because I broke up with somebody. But I basically, I entered therapy. I was accident prone, became accident prone because I wasn't paying attention. I was upset and I tripped on my dog's leash and broke my kneecap. I was like 2 weeks afterwards. That was just a sign, really, of my emotional distress. State was very, very traumatized by this, and then I lost money. I had a good paying job, and I wasn't planning to retire for a while. So it was in a complete shock, and so trying to do what I had to do, and then being denied unemployment. I mean, that was just what making stuff up, like they didn't make.
Yeah, so not only did they retaliate against you to fire you, but they then continued to retaliate against you after they fired you.
Exactly. Yeah. To make up that I was engaging in misconduct, because that's what they were. That's what they were claiming. But maybe they believed it. I don't know. But they were lying about the specifics for sure, because they were saying misgendering, and that never happened.
Yeah. You never even had occasion to gender anyone or misgender. All right. So tell me about the claims in your lawsuit.
So the claims are basically a sex discrimination, and that the word TERF is, or the acronym TERF is hate speech. It's anti-woman. It's used.
Where was that term used?
It was used by the coworker and basically ratified by management, because
in that email list.
Yeah, right. So that was basically a sexist statement, slur on me, and that saying basically that to believe that sex exists, I'm a female, and if I assert that there's such a thing as females, being fired for that is discrimination based on sex. So he's arguing that as well. The sexual orientation is the same thing, except now we have more evidence that they really were targeting me because I was a lesbian who thought there was such a thing as sex rather than somebody else, and that they didn't want to have a lesbian with that opinion.
Yeah.
So the lesbian discrimination is pretty obvious, but it's inherent in the ideology that denies sex denialism, which I call it. If you deny sex, you're denying the existence of sexual orientation, and
of course,
so it's inherently homophobic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, but the evidence, they just said stupid things. Yeah.
So what's happening now with the lawsuit?
My lawyer has interviewed the witness and is going, last I heard, was planning to amend the case. I mean, I don't know for sure when that'll happen, but and then I believe my employer has an attorney who's wants to try to throw out the claims, to do a demur, basically to say the claims aren't valid. Yeah. So I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm getting a secondhand from my attorney, but my attorney did get to talk to this witness, and she was better than I even thought. I mean, because I didn't do a full interview with her. I just talked to her a little bit. It was better than even what I had thought, that she would be able to support me and support my sexual orientation discrimination claim in particular.
Yeah. Well, that is an absolutely astounding and horrifying story. Yeah. I wish I could say it was surprising, but in the other reason, it's not that surprising.
Yeah, but it's the other reason I filed suit. Yeah, right. The other reason I filed suit was, I mean, it wasn't just for me. I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I
Yeah.
want to call this type of witch hunting,
Yeah.
persecution of people, repressive, authoritarian, McCarthy-like
Yeah. It really is like the McCarthy era.
persecution. Yeah, I wanted to call it out. I want to prevent it happening for other people. I feel very lucky despite all this happening because I am older. I am collecting Social Security already. So I had a little bit saved. I own my own house. I wasn't as vulnerable to a complete immediate cut off of income and then denial of unemployment. That
Do you
would
think
could have
there's age discrimination involved in this, in their actions as well?
we're not including that claim. I mean, uh, they have older people. It's basically if you go along with this opinion, that sex doesn't exist and to say it does is hate.
And you're safe.
If you go along with it, I guess you're okay. I mean, there's obviously a generational thing involved, but no, but we're not claiming age discrimination.
All right. Well, before we finish up, what else do you want WLRN's audience to know about?
Well, I want support. I want people to sign up. Defendfeminist.net is where the updates will be put, and there's a petition or statement of solidarity that people can sign. We're going to be at some point soon asking for organizational endorsement. Basically, I want to change what's happening in the United States so that employees who are feminists, gender critical, lesbians are not going to be targeted in this witch hunting fashion. So I want this to help other people. I do have a Justice for Ann committee that is working on getting support in media. So
And what is
that's what I need.
What is defendfeminist.net?
It was established by basically by Feminists in Struggle initially. So we to defend basically Thistle Peterson's harassment that she received. And so it's basically a place to talk about and help advocate for people, women who are being targeted for feminism.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so people should go to defendfeminist.net and they can follow your case there and they can sign a petition supporting you.
Right, that's right. And we'll be putting updates there when I get more specific updates. I'll put it up there.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for meeting with me today, and I wish you the best in your litigation. And I appreciate you standing up for not just your own rights, but the rights of other women who are being targeted and harassed for stating facts about biological sex.
Yeah, well, having support from other women has just been crucial to maintaining my equilibrium on a very traumatic event for me. So
yeah, I'm sorry that it's been so traumatic. That's really horrific. Well, thank you very much, Ann, for meeting with me.
All right. Okay.
I hope you enjoyed that installment of Getting Organized, an activist primer with Elizabeth Miller, made specifically for our WLRN listeners. I have taken the liberty of creating a playlist of all these podcasts. Simply go to the Women's Liberation Radio News YouTube channel, click on the tab entitled Playlists, and you'll see a Getting Organized playlist, along with several others, including our stellar podcasts that come out the first Thursday of each month. Thanks for stopping by. I'm April No, WLRN Canadian member, hoping you all stay radical, sisters.